Okay, so the next thing we're going to cover now is some finishing techniques to our seam. The most commonly used technique for finishing off seams, especially in fine fabric and sheer fabrics, where you can't necessarily run a regular straight stitch through and kind of leave it like that. There's usually a lot of fraying on the edges, so you're almost always going to use a French seam. And this seam is just so that you can secure it and have it look nice and neat. So like I said, it's often with sheer fabrics and those kinds of fabrics where you don't want that stitch to be obvious, and the normal finishing techniques just will not do. So your chiffons, your crepe de chines, like your very soft flow, your silks, your very soft flowy fabrics, your sheer fabrics that need to be finished are often going to be finished with the French seam. There's an additional way using binding tape that I can show you as well, but we're going to focus on French for right now. So essentially it starts off with this, and we're going to use this as a mock seam. I just ran it through the sewing machine and it opens up, and this would be the seam. So if you were stitching alongside, this would be the seam, this would be the raw edge of the seam. And if it were chiffon, it would be just fraying like crazy, and it will be a slippery mess. You always want to, when you're working with slippery fabric, basting is a must. You cannot just think that you're going to get away with using a machine stitch straight through until you're really, really comfortable. Basting is kind of like a must. So once you have that seam, what you do is you take your scissors and you go in and you trim off the very edge. So you want to do about 1/4 of an inch away. So you don't want to go out too far, and you'll see why it's important to get as close as you can possibly get when you are doing your French seam. So I want to get as close as possible, but being very careful not to clip into the actual stitches. So this is going to be the right side of the fabric. So this is going to be you combining the pieces, and this is going to be, for example, if it has a print, this is the right side of the fabric. And that's important because normally when we're doing our seams are on the wrong side. So you want the seams to be hidden in, so we often do it on the wrong side. Well, for the French seam, it requires 2 stitches. So this is the right side. For example, this could be our mock pattern. So you're going to combine 2 right sides together, do that stitch, and then you're going to cut away about 1/4 of an inch away from the stitch. Then you're going to open it up and close it again. And as you can see now, you kind of have that little bit showing. If it was more than that, you'll see why that would be an issue. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to pin it. So we have like a nice fold here. Now this is on the wrong side, right? Then I'm going to do a quick basting stitch. And the point is to get as close to that 1/4 of an inch that you made, because you're going to see that if you don't, and if you go too far up here into the top of here and there's any left out, it's not going to be a nice finished French seam. So I want to get about 1/2 inch out. I'm just going to secure it there, my basting. Okay, then I'm going to go in and just kind of check. All right, there it is. You don't want any, and when this is secured on the machine, it'll be even more defined. So now this is the right side. So there's going to be a nice closed seam there. And this is the inside of the garment. And as you can see, now I have a nice clean stitch. So obviously I'm going to go with the machine and machine stitch it near but not on top of the basting stitch, because you want to be able to take that basting stitch out. I'm going to do a nice press, and this is what a French seam is. So this is the right side of the garment, and it's going to be a nice clean seam. And then when I go inside, instead of all that fraying and the fabric being all over the place, it's going to be this nice, beautiful, clean seam. And you want to make sure that these are not These are not supposed to be wide seams. So they usually measure about 1/4 of an inch wide, maybe a little bit more than that, but these are not extremely wide seams that you're creating. They're supposed to be very, very small seams. That's why basting is going to be your friend in this effort, because when you make that final stitch, you want it to be exactly the way it should be. So that is going to be your French seam. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Videos are uploaded weekly covering dressmaking, fashion, lectures, and more.